Right back here around 10:35 on this Tuesday in downtown Alton. It's the 21st day of March, and something I've been talking to you guys about that I think is going to be a really cool event is that Centerstone, of course, the national leader, if I could talk today, in behavioral health, will host a no-cost webinar. It's called The Belonging Difference, How to Best Serve Youth with Adverse Childhood Experiences, and it features an advocate, speaker, and former NFL player, Gaelin Elmore, on March the 29th from 10 to 11:30 a.m. You're going, CJ, you're detailing this for us again. Why don't you just, find somebody else to talk about it? I did. Hannah Chapman is the project coordinator, director of the event. Hannah, thanks for joining me on the Zoom today.
Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure.
It took a little bit, but I got there,
Absolutely. I can relate to that 100%.
Well, Hannah, this is a really cool event, and take us through this. I'm going to let you kind of detail this for us and overview it for us, all the details regarding this belonging difference, how to best serve youth with adverse childhood experiences.
Sure. So first, I'd like to just touch a little bit on the CT3 program that I oversee. Mm-hmm. And so this is a grant-funded program through Centerstone. We focus on treating children ages 2 to 17 who have experienced trauma and their families. We also focus on training community members and our clinicians in trauma-informed care. So this upcoming event is part of sort of a monthly training opportunity that we offer to the communities every month through the grant-funded program. Gaelin has presented with us before, I want to say about a year and a half ago. He has lots of real-world experiences, a lot of great insight into how trauma affects the brain and how we can really help our children and our youth who have been through those things.
That sounds really cool. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I mean, just the fact that we have this service in the community, where we can all be a part of this, I think that's something that is really important. And, like I've said before, I really believe that the earlier we can start helping and, raising awareness for some of the youth in need in our community and talking about those things, that helps the problem, hopefully. Do you think the same way?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Yes. And, there are various types of trauma. So we have acute trauma. So that would be maybe a car accident or the death of a loved one, something like that. And then we have chronic trauma, which is long lasting. And a lot of times we refer to adverse childhood experiences, which are basically chronic traumas that occur in a child's life through their development. And so these adverse experiences that they have will create long-lasting impacts in their adult lives. So this is where Gaelin comes into play, and he will be talking about, how to interact with children who have these adverse experiences, how to coach them, and give them this natural sense of belonging.
That's incredible. And what I think is highly important is the fact that you guys are able to find role models and, somebody who is able to kind of reach that brass ring and reach the NFL, which very few have been able to do, whether it's for 5 years, 10 years, or even a game or a practice. And do you think that helps raise awareness to have somebody like Gaelin coming in and talking in this webinar and raising awareness? Does it help to have that, I hate to say celebrity, but that higher priority person talking about things?
I think it really does. And primarily just to expand that audience, right? The more well-known the person is, the more interest it will bring. And we hope to really encourage, as many community members as possible to attend this event.
And now how long, and I want to keep everything kind of focused on this webinar, but I want to ask you, how long has this program been going on for? I always tell people, Hannah, I do this show because I like to learn about all the things going on here in the Metro East and RiverBend communities, and this is another program I'm not too familiar with.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I came on actually as an MSW intern. So I was working in my master's into this program in 2020. So we are currently about year 3.5 of a 5-year grant. And so we're a little over halfway. And we're really feeling the impacts of the program. And, like you mentioned, our area doesn't have a ton of resources, and there's not a lot of programs like this, which is precisely how this grant was implemented and developed, was to kind of meet those needs.
Absolutely. And I mean, just right off the top of the bat here that I'm thinking, there's so many important topics being discussed in this webinar. And another thing that I think is a huge component, and this is from all the folks in my family that need those continuing ed hours, I mean, this is a great learning experience too.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing about ACEs is that really over half of Americans report experiencing at least one ACE. 1 in 6 Americans have 4 or more ACEs, and 5 of the top leading causes of death in America are associated with these adverse childhood experiences. And so it's not so much it's not the other that we're referring to, and a lot of times, it's all of us that really experience these things. And to think that you would be able to live a long life and not be interacting with someone who has these experiences really is not realistic.
And that's what I think is such a huge point to hit on is, so many times I think that we're so tuned now to kind of watch the news, no matter which station you're on, don't yell at me, you watch the news and you see things, you go, well, that happens there. That doesn't happen here. And we kind of put those blinders on, but it affects us greatly here in this Metro East community.
Exactly.
And now, can we talk a little bit about the services? I was just reading through some of the press release, which I've read at least 3 or 4 times now, because I want everyone to take this, opportunity that you're providing us. Can you take us through some of the CT3 services and what they include?
Yeah. So as I, mentioned before, we really have 2 main components. The first one is the training aspect.
Right.
And so we want to mobilize and build local capacity in the community for trainings and education. Our program, just as of January, started meeting with our clients in school when possible. So we were meeting just in office or hybrid, telehealth. But you have a 6-year-old with some trauma, telehealth isn't always the most effective. And so trying to figure out a way to meet with them in a safe environment where they're comfortable and they can express themselves has been a really big step for the program. And so we also, of course, work to train our clinicians in trauma-informed care. So we focus on trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. We have a few that do prolonged exposure, which is more of an adult modality, but it can definitely be used with kids with PTSD too. So we train our clinicians in those modalities. We help spread awareness in the community. And then, of course, we treat our clients on a weekly, biweekly, or monthly basis, depending on their needs.
Well, and too, I mean, it's these services, it takes a special person to really be able to provide these services, really. And I don't mean that to patronize you. It's just this isn't a job for everybody. And I'm sure that you guys experience, different situations each and every day of the week. So to have that here and to be able to go into schools and make the child feel more comfortable in that, treatment or that conversation, I think it's incredible. And I wanted to ask you a little bit more in regards to just how this webinar is going to kind of look. So whenever we log in, how do we get that information? Do we register with Centerstone?
Yes, so we do have a registration link. It is located on our events page.
We'll grab it and we'll put it on the interview on demand. So that way no one's got to go searching for it, because I just want to make sure there is a registration. Now, this starts at 10 a.m. Does it start right off the bat with that keynote speaker?
Typically what will happen is you'll log in and you will only see the speaker and myself and maybe one other Centerstone employee. You won't be able to see yourself and you will be automatically muted. So that kind of alleviates some people's nervousness or, anxieties about that. But yeah, so typically right at 10 a.m., I'll say hello and good morning to everyone, give a few minutes to let everyone get logged in. And we usually get started right away.
That's
about by 10:05, I'd say at the latest. Yeah.
Wow. Well, and I got to ask you, because I'm the same way watching our Google Meet line, because we have people joining by webcam. That gets intimidating when you're one of 3 up there,
Oh, absolutely. It can be 100%.
And now, is the speaking engagement going to have any Q&A, or is it just a straight through presentation?
No, typically we'll allow, maybe the last 20 to 30 minutes, depending on the presenter, of course, with time for questions and answers. We really leave it up to the presenter. So I've had some who prefer to come off mute and just ask your question aloud. Others would rather use the chat or the Q&A. Working with Gaelin before, I think he's pretty open, so I'm sure he'll be comfortable with either.
Well, and too, what I think is really important too is the fact that you guys are finding individuals and representative advocates that really connect with, the youth, and not just the youth, but the parents and the guardians and the people that are going to watch this. I mean, how important is it to find a role model like Gaelin for these presentations?
Oh, it's so important. And, kind of circling back to the title of his presentation, The Belonging Difference, he speaks about being in the foster care system himself and just having all of these adversities throughout his childhood that he never felt like he belonged. So he thought, hey, once I make it to the NFL and I'm successful and I've gotten there, I'll belong and I'll be healed. And of course he gets there and that's not always the case. And so, allowing community members and clients to have a face like Gaelin's to say, hey, he's like me. Right. He's experienced the same things I have. I am not alone. That is some of the most important ways that we can really help our youth and get them to overcome some of these things and process their traumas in a safe place that says you're not being judged, you're not being, there's nothing wrong with your experiences. They just are what they are, and we're going to help you get through those.
Absolutely. And it's so important. And just, what I've always been told too, just from the community support, not just from Centerstone, is, being able to be a part and really be, raise awareness for the children in our community and really show them that there are programs and ways we can help. And this is another great way to do this. And another thing that I think is really important too is to talk about, just, I hate to do this to you, but is there a way that maybe just some story, I don't want to ask you for any personal stories, but just some of the successes that you guys have had in this course of running these seminars, have they grown?
Oh, the attendance wise? Oh, absolutely. Yes. I would say when I first started, we would have, maybe around 50 to 60 attendees. Wow. Per training. The last one that we did a 4-part racial trauma series with a local person, and we had around 160 attendees for a few of those. And so it's really expanding. And, we also offer in-person trainings. Our team members do, usually smaller crowds, or an organization or agency will ask us to come to talk about something specific. We've gone to junior high schools and talked about self-love and self-care and those types of things. And just trying to, kind of get ahead of the game, so to speak. Yeah. So anyone that hasn't experienced adversity or traumas, if we're practicing mindfulness and taking care of ourselves physically, mentally, and emotionally, we're better prepared for those traumas when they do come, where maybe they won't impact us quite as severely.
Well, and like I said, I can't speak highly enough about this program. It's something that I really think that we should all be talking about and really attending. Now, is there a cutoff? Let's say if people start really picking up on this, I know you said you had 160 almost last time. Is there a, like a cutoff you guys do, or is it unlimited registration?
I think it's fairly unlimited. I know our through Centerstone itself, we might have a cap of 300 attendees. Okay. And that's great to know. Now, how many of these do you guys plan throughout the year too, just in case maybe a listener goes, I want to be a part of one, but I can't do the 29th. Are there other opportunities? Oh, absolutely. For this particular training, I can't guarantee that we would have Gaelin back.
Right.
We hope to, but it's not a guarantee. However, we typically will offer an hour and a half training opportunity with 1.5 CEUs for continuing education hours once a month. Wow. Tends to fall kind of the third Wednesday of the month. Same time frame, 10 to 11:30. CT3 is partnering with Building Compassionate Communities program, which I think you had David Mills on not long ago. And so we are going to collaborate together and try to provide that 4-part racial trauma series again this spring. So you can be on the lookout for that too, if that's something of interest. Well, and that would be April, May, June, and July. That
is really just remarkable. And like I said, I think it's fantastic that you guys are providing this for the community. And hopefully, you got 2 more years left in the grant to be able to do this. And we'll enjoy the next 2 years and see what happens.
Absolutely.
Now, with this, what is the biggest takeaway from the program? Because everything you guys teach, everything that you guys are trying to do, every part of your mission is highly important. But is there one mission or one point in that mission that you guys started with first and developed ideas around for this? Or has it just kind of always been that same model?
Well, I think it has evolved over time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you put things down on paper,
Right.
and then you get busy and maybe it doesn't match exactly. So we have had some changes and things like that. Absolutely. But I think the underlying need in our rural communities of needing trauma-based resources is really the unchanging foundation of the program itself. The resources just didn't always exist accessibly for our community members, and so as far as that goes, I think that will remain the same. We are hopeful that we get the program successful enough that even at the end of the grant funding, we can continue through Centerstone as an individual program itself,
Mm-hmm.
self-sustainable. That's definitely becoming a more and more of a priority as the years go by. Absolutely.
Well, I bet. And Hannah, like I said, I really can't thank you enough for just popping in a little bit and detailing this for us a little bit more, because I've been talking about this and I thought, I might as well email Dallas and see if we can get you on and really detail this further, because I can only do it so much justice. But, reading through this, you guys are really doing something important, and that's laying a foundation to really help the children in our community and on the youth in general in our community kind of develop those skills that they need to help, provide them a better mental, aspect in life later on. I think that's highly important. I hope we all do it.
Thank you very much. Yes. And, I think that's, another important aspect or component is that, we have that generational transference where the trauma continues from generation to generation. And so trying to reach those young people to maybe break that cycle.
Absolutely. And one last thing I want to hit on, just in case people are tuning in late, Hannah Chapman is here now from Centerstone. We've been talking about the upcoming The Belonging Difference, How to Best Serve Youth with Adverse Childhood Experiences. It's a webinar with former NFL player Gaelin Elmore on March the 29th from 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And now this is for everybody. We've been talking CEUs. We've been talking some other things. But what I like is there's no restriction. If you want to be a part of this, you can do it. And I think that's so important.
Absolutely. I do too.
And Hannah,
raising awareness, right, makes change.
One interview at a time,
Absolutely.
It'd help if I was able to speak better today, but that's okay. We aren't on Gold Glovers.
You're making me look better, so that's okay.
Hannah, you are welcome on anytime you want to talk about an upcoming webinar or any other program you guys are developing. I really appreciate it.
Well, I really appreciate you having us and sharing the word.
Absolutely. We'll take a quick break. Our daily show will roll on right after this in downtown Alton.